Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I have the update for my Pan Your Book Project Pan. So I created this Project Pan because I wanted to talk about books and makeup, and I also feel like I want to push myself to read more. So if I combine it into a Project Pan, then I will use my makeup and I will also feel like too embarrassed to talk about the same book for several updates. So this has really pushed me to keep reading more, and you know, I have so many TBRs in my bookshelves, or what I like to call them, shelf warmers. So I'm really happy to get through all of the books that I have bought but not read. What is the deal with, like, I love to buy books and then like just read them, Helena, read them. I also, as I always say in this update, I think that it's important to highlight readers, that we need to be shown, we need to be out there and say that, you know, I love this book, I love to read, because reading is not really, people aren't reading anymore, which is a threat to our democracy and everything. So that is the reasoning behind my Project Pan. As I said, I created this one. It is basically that I talk about the book I read and I enroll makeup that fits like some kind of thing happening in the book or anything that can be connected to this book. I enroll prompt for the book. What am I even saying? If you're wondering what's on my eyes, I did film this, and it is the Cosmology palette by Beauty Moon Cosmetics. This is a new indie brand that I tried out. It's from the UK, and yeah, I did 3 looks. I will have them up on my channel hopefully if I get time to edit. So you should watch out for that one. Look out. Watch out. Keep an eye out for that one. This is the color story. It is absolutely stunning, and these shimmer shades are very special and very nice. So that is my speedy introduction. Let's jump straight into the update because I have a lot of books to talk about. So the book that I have been reading for 2 updates now is this big boy. This is The Priory of the Orange Tree. It's a fantasy book by Samantha Shannon. It's about dragons, which is kind of why, I mean, look at this cover. It is absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, I have been reading it for 2 months now. I have actually finished this book, so I can give you my thoughts on it. And for this book I have enrolled, I have 4 prompts, and some will be rolling out and I will roll new shit in. But let's talk about this book, because it takes place in this fantasy world where dragons exist and magic exists. It is like the magic is, you have 2 branches of magic, and that will like keep the balance of the world. So the water dragons are like the good dragons, and then you have fire-breathing dragons, which is the bad dragons, and the fire dragons, or the draconic creatures, are like a result of the imbalance between these 2 magical branches. And the big bad boss is called the Nameless One. There is a prophecy, or like he was banished, and then it is a prophecy that one bloodline is what keeps this dragon at bay, but some are doubting it and saying that, well, within 1,000 years he will return. You follow a lot of different characters in this book. For example, you follow Ede, which is a sorcerer. She's a sorceress, and she pulls her magic from the orange tree. And she is like sent out to protect this bloodline, the Queen Sabran specifically. Then you also follow what was her name? Tane. And she's a dragon rider living in the east. And like this world is very divided, so you have places in the north where like this Queen Sabran lives on the island of Innis. they believe that all dragons are evil and heretics, but in the east, where like people look at the water dragons like gods, and you can become a dragon rider and so on. I don't really know how to summarize this book, but let's just say that this book wasn't really for me. I didn't enjoy it too much because I feel like she wanted to do too much within one book. This is the only novel, or there is a prequel to this novel, but this is like a standalone. You can read this and don't read the other one. The storyline kind of wraps up at the end. And I feel like you had so many different quests that could easily have been split up into several novels. I mean, you have this like the first idea of the queens of Virtudom or Innis Island, that they have to give birth to a daughter to keep the nameless one at bay. You had that storyline that kind of had its twists and turns, and then you have like the people looking for different trees, because the orange tree is not the only tree with like magical powers. You have the mulberry tree and the hawthorn tree, and like that could have been its own book. It felt like she tried to squeeze too much into this story. So I felt like I never really got to fall into this world, so to speak. She could have easily expanded on details and stories to get the reader more involved in this universe. Those are my thoughts. I don't know, have you read this book? What do you think? Am I like the fantasy noob and I don't get it? Because I mean, I don't hate fantasy. I actually really enjoy fantasy, but this was just not for me. Fantasy isn't my favorite genre. I do actually really love dystopian novels and so on, but yeah, I finished it. It wasn't for me, but here we are. So let's talk about the products that I have been working on connected to this novel. The first one has been in for like since the beginning, and this is the Island Play eyeshadow palette, the Regima eyeshadow palette, and I enrolled this because there is a shade in this palette called Queen, and I wanted to use to hit pan in the shade Queen, and also to use this palette No Pan Left Behind. Jesus. And of course Queen, you know, Queen Sabran, the queendom, they need to give birth to daughters to keep the nameless one at bay, and to always have like, there will always be a reigning queen, so to speak. So I had not hit pan on this one last update, but as of this update I have used the shade Queen 12 times. And this is what we're looking like. So you can see that I did actually hit pan. And I have used all of the shades in this palette. I don't know if this is going to last, if I will, if this will survive my next eyeshadow clutter. I didn't feel too inspired reaching into this palette, unfortunately, so I don't know, but I am happy to have a hit pan in Queen. It is just a very basic brown shimmer shade. Nothing special at all, and if you know me, I love my colorful makeup, and this is very basic. So, we are going to roll out this palette. Then, something that has also been in for the updates that I have been reading this book is this lip liner from Nouba. It's a super old lip liner, and it is in a red shade 53 I think. And why did I enroll this one, apart from it being very old? Well, there is, in this novel, people can be infected by draconic creatures if they like, I don't know if it's by touching them or if they have to be bitten, I don't really remember, but then they will have the red sickness, and which will eventually lead to their death, and it is also very, very contagious. So for example, Tane, who lives in the east, she lives on this island, Orissima? Was it? No, that's the city. Seiki. And they have actually shut their borders completely because they don't want to risk bringing the red sickness into their country. So I enrolled this red lipliner because of the red sickness, and I set the goal quite hefty to hit, to sharpen it until this mark here. And I do have some ways to go. I will show you the progress pictures. I do sharpen it from time to time. This is like, I have used this very, very lightly as the base today, which is what I tend to do. But yeah, I want to use this some this year and maybe roll it in next year as a thing that I want to finish completely, because it is such an old lip liner. Then last time I enrolled 2 things. One of them being the Space Age highlighter from Michaelides. This is in the shade Prophecy. And as I said, there is like a prophecy about the bloodline of Sabran, and that is maintaining the world peace. This is a multi-chrome highlighter. I don't know if my swatch was enough. And I wanted to use this 15 times. There you go. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is so intense. Like, you just have to dip your brush in. I'm just using what's left of my finger. Like, you have to barely touch it to be very, very intense on the cheeks. I have used this highlighter 15 times. And this is what we're looking like today. So there is a little dip there. I was kind of working on trying to get the pattern to go away, but since this is so intense, I actually just had to dip in once. So that is why we have this little dip going in the center, but I did not want that dip. But anyways, that is where we are. Yeah, it's stunning, and it was such a joy to work on. I have been like savoring this for special occasions, but you shouldn't do that. So I've been rocking a multi-chrome highlighter on my cheeks at work. It has been fabulous. Highly recommend. Anyways, then finally last time I also enrolled the eyeshadow palette Art Nouveau by Kyla. And why did I enroll this one? Well, there is one shade in this palette called Water Serpents. And I felt like that was absolutely perfect, because the water dragons are water serpents, right? So I wanted to hit pan on that shade, but also to use this palette No Pan Left Behind as always. And yeah, it was, I don't know if I had used this shade before rolling it into this project, and I have now used that shade 5 times, and this is what we're looking like. There is a little dip, as you can see there, so it's not too like dry and hard pressed. It might be in for quite some time. I don't know how deep these pans are, but I am very encouraged to see that, you know, after 5 uses, I can actually see that I have used this shade. I have used all of the other shades in this palette also. I think maybe not this one, because I'm working on a different like orange shade. But I do enjoy this palette. It is very nice. The quality is actually really good, even though there aren't any like special duochrome, multi-chrome shades in this one. It is nice, and yeah, I am going to, Water Serpents will remain in this project, and that is a swatch of that shade there. Very, very pretty. So those are the items that I've been working on for this particular book. We are at 2 remaining items. Before I talk about my new book and the items that I will work on connecting to that novel, let's talk about the other books that I read during May and June, because there are quite a lot of books. I have been so good at reading this month. So let's talk about them before I bring in the new items. Okay, this is the pile of books that I have finished this month other than the Priory. So let's talk about them. I did read the book Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I have had this in my bookshelf since the TV show, the TV show was was so great, so I felt inspired to read the book. And I have I really enjoyed this book as well. There were some slight differences that made quite a lot of impact in the show, but overall it's a very, very faithful adaptation of the book. And it's about Shaker Heights, people living in this very privileged society in the US, and you follow different characters. For example, you follow Mrs. Richardson, and she lives her life very organized, very structured and according to plan. What are you doing? How should you live your life? You should go to school, you should have kids, you should marry, you should do everything. And she they have an estate that they rent to people, and she rents this apartment to a woman called Mia Warren and her daughter Pearl. And when they enter this Mrs. Richardson's world and this very organized, peaceful town, how everything turns upside down, and little fires everywhere. Things are starting to kind of fall apart, basically. I really enjoyed this book. The point of view was an all-knowing narrator. What is it called? Can't find the word, but and that is different, because otherwise you would read it in first person perspective or third person. So it's not too common to have this all-knowing narrator, because you would shift between characters within paragraphs, not by chapters. So that was an interesting way to tell this story, but I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend reading this one, especially if you even if you haven't seen the show, or if you have seen the show and you like the show, you can't go wrong reading this book either way. I did read this one as well. This is the Season of Migration to the North by Tayeb Salih. This is a classic, and it is about a young man returning to his home after he has been studying in the UK or in England, and how then he's kind of meeting this older man who had also been studying abroad and living abroad, and how the clashes between the Western culture and the Arabic culture that they are from, or the African culture. That's kind of the storyline, and it's about post-colonialism. What does it do to you to experience these different cultures, and how will it affect you? I think that I read it too quickly, because I kind of sped through this in one day, and I should have taken my time to reflect, but it was okay. I could not stop myself reading this with a feminist critical approach, even though it's supposed to be post-colonial critical approach. So I kind of felt more, I looked at the way that women were portrayed and that aspect more than the aspect of you know, colonizing parts of Africa. What does it do to people? And yeah, I don't know. Have you read this book? What do you think about it? Maybe I should reread it at a slower pace to kind of take in the story, but that is my general conclusion. I have read this Swedish book called Stöld. What is it? Theft. Stolen. And this is written by the Sami author Ann-Helen Laestadius, and it's about the conflict between the indigenous peoples in Sweden. Their main source of income and labor is to have reindeers. I was going to say cattle, but that's not it. And you know, the conflicts, how people, like the racism towards the Sami people in Sweden, and how people hate them so much that they will actually torture and kill their like reindeers because they hate the people. And it's just, it was a very, very heavy read, very horrible. I had to change my battery. Yeah, what was I saying? Like reading about people hurting animals, it just, I get so sad and so, it's just, it breaks my heart, even though I know it's like fictional, it's not happening, but somewhere it happens, and that just, I don't know, I can't take it, it's so bad. But it was a good book. I read this. I know that many teachers like to use this because part of the Swedish curriculum is actually to learn about our indigenous peoples. And I think that this author is very good at like telling their stories. So this has also been released as a Netflix TV show. I haven't seen it. I don't really watch Swedish, or like I don't watch many shows produced in Sweden. So, but if you have, if you're interested, you can check it out. I think it will be available on many Netflix over the world. And then I think it's called Stolen. So. Then I have read this one. This is by Vinterflickor or Wintergirls, I think the English title is. It's by Laurie, Halse, Andersen. And I also read this for work. Mine is signed because I bought this when I went to the book fair that we went with my work. And Laurie Halse Andersen, she had just gotten the Alma Prize for her contributions to young adult literature. And she was there, and they had just released this book, like translated into Swedish. This was very heavy also to read. It's about a girl who has lost her friend. Her friend had severe bulimia, and this other girl, Leah, has she is sick. She has anorexia, and it was very difficult to read because everything centered around food and her very, very sick relationship to food. I was thinking that maybe this is something that we could work with, with the children, but it was so dark. So I don't know. Maybe it was too dark, and just at the end it kind of got some hope, but it was heavy. I know that because Laurie, when I met her, she talked about the issues. She's been banned in a lot of schools in the US, or libraries and so on, because of the content that she writes about. But this is such important content. Why are we banning literature? Seriously, it it is beyond me that that books are banned, but like, I don't know. The internet is so full of shit, but you know, a book, it will actually do so much harm. Like, it's not like horrible things are not very, very easily available to children online. And this is actually something educational, something good, even though it's heavy. Okay, then finally, before I talk about the book that I'm currently reading, I did read this book by Ulf Kvensler. It's called Sarek. Sarek is in the Swedish, what is it called? Fjäll? Like in Lapland in Sweden, you have these like big scenic nature hiking trails and so on, and this Sarek is one of those places. So I wanted to read something, after I finished Priory of the Orange Tree, I wanted to read something easy, quick, grabbing, because it was like a bit of a struggle at the end to finish that book. So I did pick this one. This is a psychological thriller about a group of friends who are going to like hike in the Swedish Laplands, and then a friend has just met a new boyfriend, and she kind of asks if he can tag along, and a bit reluctantly the main character Anna and her boyfriend, they agree that he can come, and then suddenly new boyfriend Jacob, he gets them to pick a different hiking trail. They were going to walk somewhere else, but then, you know, he said, well, let's hike in Sarek. Sarek is not the beginner friendly place, and this is the story, like, you get to read the present day is where Anna is at the police because they have found her walking lost in Sarek, like totally malnourished, beaten up, everything. And then she kind of, in the police interrogations, she describes what has happened, and everything is not as it should be with this new boyfriend. And yeah, she works as a lawyer, and she immediately, when she met this guy Jacob, she thought that she recognized him, and then it kind of, from that initial thought, the story unfolds like, how do I know him? What does he want? Is this like... It was very grabbing. It was the perfect book to read after I finished the Priory, because it was like a thriller. It hooked me. It was well written, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Wouldn't read it if you're going to go on a hike, but yeah, it was very nice to read. Those are the books. I am currently reading this one. This is the final book in the Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. This is called Death's End. And yeah, it is also a big boy. I have read about 150 pages, I think. And yeah, as I said, it's the final book of 3. So when I started this project, I was reading the book called The Dark Forest. I read the Three-Body Problem last year, I think it was. And now I want to finish the series. I just needed to have a little bit of a breathing space between. So this is a sci-fi novel. You follow different characters in each book, but they are like the story is connected. I don't know if you have seen the show on Netflix, but it is really, really good. The Three-Body Problem. It was a really great adaptation. They are kind of into all of the books, because what's happening in the beginning of this book is actually in the TV show. It's about this scientist who they are trying to figure out a way to send a person to an alien spaceship, and like this, how do we say it without spoiling too much? Yeah, and you also get to meet the person that will actually be sent there, and how they figure out what do we do. We will send his brain only, because we cannot put an entire human body, it will be too heavy, and so on. And how do we combat our issue with, like, the spaceship is too far away, and our physics, we haven't really gotten we can't travel at such speeds, it will take too long, so how do we do that? So that is like the beginning of this story, but that is part of the Netflix series. And yeah, it's about the how humanity discovers an alien species, the Trisolarians, and the three-body problem is, like the title, is based on that this alien species live on a planet with 3 suns, like 3 bodies, and how that affects their planet and their race, like the species itself, and how the Trisolarian army of the Trisolarians discover the planet Earth, and like they only have 1 sun, they thrive in that condition, so let's just go there and take over their planet, because we cannot live in our own planet anymore. It is too unstable. So that's like the basis. So it spans over a really, really long time. This one is, you can actually see the timeline in the beginning, table of eras. So you have like the common era, the crisis era, the Terrans era, post the Terrans era, and like it spans over thousands of years, which is interesting. It is very sci-fi heavy, but I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed this trilogy, and as I said, the TV show was superb, so I'm happy to be digging my teeth into this one to finish it off. It is a joy, in my opinion, to read. I actually really enjoy it. So we have this book, and I am rolling in 2 items to that book. So it will be a bit easy, the first one. I am going to enroll this lipstick by Cixin Cosmetics. It's just a red, like, moussey lip color. It's very nice. It's like a little bit of a brick around it. Maybe I can add that. Okay, why am I adding this product? Very easy. Kind of not connected to the story, but this is a Chinese author, Cixin, and all of the main characters are of course Chinese, so I'm just going with that for this first update, and adding this because this is a Chinese indie brand, or Chinese brand. Cixin Cosmetics is from China. Maybe not too connected to the story, but it is what it is. I am going to roll with it because I want to use this lipstick, and that is my plan then. So I'm gonna use this lipstick, I think 15 times. Will be good. And yeah, it is absolutely beautiful. I love Cixin, and their design is just stunning. So 15 times for this one, and then I'm going to roll in a brand new palette for me, or I've used it, but it's very, very new. This is the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Machina palette, and I am specifically going to roll in a shade from this palette, and it's this shade here, because this shade is called Sci-Fi, and this book is a sci-fi book. I know I'm cheap again, but it is my project. I have so much, but I just enrolled like a highlighter. I have so many like space things in my collection, but I wanted to play around with this palette. This is the shade Sci-Fi. It's a yellow greenish color, and I want to try and hit pan on that one. Even though this palette is so new, I'm gonna try. And I will also try and use all of the shades in this palette because it is beautiful, I think. Love Blend Bunny Cosmetics formula, and I just want to play around with this palette now. It's fun for the season. So, those are the 2 items that I roll in connected to this book. I still have to hit pan on that Sea Serpent shade, and I have to use this lip liner, but these 2 will work so well together, so hopefully I can have some good progress on the lip liner until next update. But yeah, that is it for this update. Please let me know what you think. Have you read any of these books? What are you reading currently? I would love to know. I have started to making notes because I got some great book tips last time. So if you have any, like, you should read this, you should read that, please leave it in the comments and I will take note of it. And yeah, I hope that you're all well, and I will see you in my next update. Bye guys!